Welcome, my lovely grade 3s, to Worksheet.com's online lessons. I am teacher Nicole, for those of you that are joining us for the first time, and we are continuing with our lesson on reading and comprehension skills today. So yesterday we read a story, and today we are going to continue with that story, and we're going to look at comprehension skills like summarizing, retelling the story, and then ultimately answering questions. So, without wasting your time, grade 3s, we're going to get started. If you have any questions about this lesson or any of my other lessons, grade 3s, please send an email to grade3@worksheetcloud.com and we will get back to you as soon as we can after this lesson. So, like I said, we are going to be looking at reading and comprehension skills again today, grade 3, based on yesterday's lesson. The lesson outline for today: we're going to play an adjective game. Then we're going to do elements of a story. So based on the story that we read yesterday, we're going to be doing elements of a story. And then we're going to retell the story. And yesterday we touched on retelling a story. So today we're just going to do in a bit more detail. And then we're going to look at questions and how to restate the questions at the end of the lesson. So, the adjective game. We have a sentence on the screen, grade 3. And what we're going to do is we are going to spice the sentence up. So, Mike ate a burger. I'm going to place a few adjectives on the screen now, and I want you to think of or write down how you can put those adjectives into the sentence to make it more exciting, more juicy. Okay, grade 3? So I'm going to put the adjectives on now. Juicy is my first one. Jolly, and I'm in the way of jolly, so I'm just going to come down over here. Happily, big, huge. Okay, so those are my adjectives. Let's see if you can use all of these adjectives, and there's an adverb in there, in the sentence. I'm going to give you a few seconds to do that, grade 3s, and then I'm going to put down on the answer. Okay? Let's go now. Remember, grade 3's adverbs describe or tell us more about the verb in the sentence, okay? So, there's an adverb there, which I sneakily put in, and I want you to just spice this sentence up. So, Mike ate a burger, and now we're going to see how we could have written the sentence with adjectives and adverbs in it. Jolly Big Mike happily ate a huge, juicy burger. Wow, look at that sentence, grade 3s. So I wonder how many you guys used. It's okay if you didn't use all of them. Remember, we are all learning, but this is the way that I used all of them in my sentence. So Mike ate a burger became Jolly Big Mike happily ate a huge, juicy burger. So, like I said, we are going to be looking at elements of a story. Firstly, in a story, we have characters. The characters in the story are who or what the story is about. So, for example, our story of yesterday, the elements of that story or the characters in that story would be Curly, the lion, Mr. Zebra, and Mrs. Lion. There were obviously other characters, but those characters weren't named. So we are only writing down the characters that were named. So the first element of a story we are looking at, grade 3s, are the characters of that story. The next element of a story is the setting, where the story takes place. The example that I've used is from the story that we've read yesterday. So the jungle, we could say, because obviously the animals are in the jungle, but if some of you would think it's the lion's house, that would be fine as well, because the setting is where the story takes place. The plot is what happens in the story. So it's like a summary of the whole story, telling us what happened and the sequence of events in that story. So what happened in our story, grade 3s? Curly is lazy and does not like to get up. Mr. Zebra hides his phone. Everyone comes to look for it, but they can't find it. Why can't they find it, grade 3s? Because it is under Curly, and Curly does not want to get up. When he goes to the bathroom, he finds it. How does he find it when he goes to the bathroom? It was laying under him the whole time. So that means if he had to move or help the people look for his phone, he would have seen in the beginning already that the phone was lying under him the whole time. So far, the elements of our story are the characters, the setting, the plot, and lastly, for today's lesson, is going to be the moral of the story, which is the lesson. So I know, grade 3s, this is a lot of information for you. So I'm going to say it and repeat myself. The characters, setting, plot, and moral, those are elements of a story. Every story has certain elements or characteristics that make up that story. So in our story, we have our characters, who or what the story is about, which is Curly, Mr. Zebra, and Mrs. Lion. The setting is where the story takes place. So we could say the jungle or lion's house. The plot is what happened in the story. And we all know that Curly was lazy and did not want to get up. So his friend Mr. Zebra hid his phone under him. And the only way that he was going to find the phone would be if he got up. And lastly, grade 3s, we look at the moral of the story, which is the lesson that the story wants to teach us. And in our story, the lesson was that we should not be lazy. Because when we are lazy, we have other people doing things for us that they don't actually need to do for us because we are strong. Okay, so that's the elements of a story. So when we go to other stories, grade 3s, and I ask you to identify the elements of a story, you will know that those are the 4 sections that I would like you to know for now. So let's move on. The Lazy Lion. So grade 4s, we're going to read the story again for some of you that maybe have forgotten or that didn't do the activity after the lesson yesterday. We're going to read the story again to kind of refresh our memories on it. And then we're going to go into how we could possibly summarize it or get the important parts out of this story. Right. Once upon a time, there was a lion. This lion's name was Curly. Curly enjoyed lying in the sun and asking people to do things for him. Mr. Zebra was a very good friend to Curly, and he used to visit him often. "How are you?" Mr. Zebra asked. "I'm so tired, Zebra," Curly said. "I feel like I just do so much. Later, I have to tell Mrs. Lion to get food to eat." Zebra smiled to himself. "You should take it easy, Curly. You should not overdo it." But Mr. Zebra knew that Curly did not do much at all. He was always lying around. Mr. Zebra had a family to look after. He went to work, he got them food, and still found time to visit his friend. Mr. Zebra tried to show Curly how important it was to do things. So he hid his most prized possession, his cell phone. "I'm going to go to work. Enjoy the rest of your day." Curly decided to have a nap after Mr. Zebra left. When he woke up, he wanted to check his messages, but his phone was not lying next to him like it usually does. Lion became anxious. "Mrs. Lion," he shouted, "have you seen my phone?" She shook her head while she tried to cook his food. "Could you help me look?" "Sure, my love." Mrs. Lion looked everywhere, next to the tree, under the rocks, by the river. It was nowhere to be seen. Curly became very impatient. He wanted his phone, and yet he did not move from where he was laying. "Ask all the animals to come and help." Mrs. Lion got all the animals in the village to help them look for the phone. They looked all day and all night. Nothing. Mr. Zebra shook his head. He knew where the phone was, and it did not need so many animals to help look for it. But Curly was just too lazy. Everyone was tired and they went home. Finally, he got up to go to the bathroom, and there it was, his phone, lying under him all the time. Curly realized that for 2 whole days he did not get up. He made everyone look for his phone, and it was under him all the time. He felt very bad. After that, he decided to be less lazy and to get up more often. So, grade threes, that is the story about the lazy lion. And I know we've read it twice before and now we've read it again. So we're going to go through the next steps of understanding the story. So we're going to be doing retelling of the story. Remember, we spoke about it in the previous lesson as well. And retelling a story is basically us trying to summarize it into a shorter version. So what I've done for you, I've given you a sentence starter. Once upon a time. A sentence starter helps you get started. So I put in there, once upon a time, there was a named, he had a friend named, this friend hid his phone because all the animals had to help look for the was Curly all along. Curly realized that he should not be anymore. So I've left out the words, grade threes, and I want you to think about it, okay? And I want you to fill in the missing words, okay? So I'm going to leave it on for a few seconds and then I'm going to start giving you the answers. So once upon a time, there was a lion named Curly. Okay, so that is the idea that I want you to have when you are busy finishing this grade threes, okay? So, once upon a time, there was a lion named Curly. That's your first sentence. He was very is your next sentence. So, he was very lazy. He had a friend named Mr. Zebra. This friend hid his phone because he was lazy. All the animals had to help look for the phone. The phone was under Curly all along. Curly realized that he should not be lazy anymore. So I have just made a shortened version of my story, and it reads like this. Once upon a time, there was a lion named Curly. He was very lazy. He had a friend named Mr. Zebra. This friend hid his phone because he was lazy. All the animals had to help look for the phone. The phone was under Curly all along. Curly realized that he should not be lazy anymore. Well done, grade 3s. We did this all together. So now we're going to be looking at questions. These questions I want you to think about, and we're going to answer them in relation to our story, The Lazy Lion. Who are the characters in the story? What was the lion's name? What was the name of Curly's friend? What went missing from Curly? Why could he not find his phone? So those 5 questions, grade 3s, I want you to think about them and I would like you to answer them. So I'm going to leave it on for a few seconds so that you can get used to these questions and try to figure out what the answers could be. Grade 3s, you could also pause it at this stage so that you can have time to write down the questions and the answers. And then when we go to the answers, then you can at least mark your work. Okay, so how are we going to answer these questions? So very, very good step that I have here, grade 3s, I'm going to take out my pen, is that we use our question to answer our question. So we're going to say who are the characters in the story, and I'm going to take my pen to underline the part that I'm going to use. So the characters in the story is what I'm going to use in my answer now. So I'm going to use the question in my answer. So who are the characters in the story? I'm going to say the characters in the story are, and answer it. Then, what was the lion's name? I'm going to use the lion's name was. What was the name of Curly's friend? The name of Curly's friend was. So this is how what we call restating the question, grade 3s, because I'm using my question to answer the question. So I'm saying, what was the name of Curly's friend? The name of Curly's friend was Mr. Zebra. What went missing from Curly? The part I'm going to use now, this is a bit tricky, grade 3s. What went missing from Curly? I will now start with the answer and I will say the phone went missing from Curly. So I'm going to use went missing from Curly. The phone went missing from Curly. So I'm going to still use my question, the words in my question. Why could he not find his phone? He could not find his phone because, and that I'm still using the words in my question. Right. So answer time. And I'm going to put the answers up and get out of your way. The characters in the story are Curly, Mr. Zebra, and Mrs. Lion. The lion's name is Curly. Curly's friend's name is Mr. Zebra. Curly's phone went missing. He could not find his phone because he was lying on it. And remember, grade 3s, he did not want to get up. So if he got up, he would have found his phone. And that's the end of this lesson, grade 3s. You can send any questions about this lesson to grade3@worksheetcloud.com. There's an activity and memo after this lesson so that you can get used to reading and answering questions based on a comprehension. Grade 3s, I hope that you enjoyed this and that you've learned something from me. And remember, grade 3s, every day we learn something new. So I hope that you are using your talents like I've spoken to you before about, and you are using this time to express yourself. Okay. And from me, Miss Frank, goodbye.